Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Castellani, and this is Terri Gnann, and we are filming an end of the year broadcast today, and this is a reflective broadcast where we're going to examine some of the statistics about what we've just been through. Okay, and we'll wrap it all up in the end with an appeal for pretty much anyone who is perhaps struggling or is questioning whether or not they should go into recovery. Okay, so Terri, I'm going to move this over for you right there.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thought we would kind of had this broadcast to kind of look back over 21. The COVID-19 hit, and it kind of made addiction and some of the statistics we had take a back burner to what was going on with COVID. We lost 93,000 people to the disease of addiction. And that also includes alcohol, because alcohol is a drug. And consistent with chronic use, there's some statistics that were quite alarming. And I wanted to share some because it just came out by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, some of these factors. And like I said, it just came down. So I want to share some with you, and it should might trigger some more questions that you have. And if you can think of some, Brian asked
Sure.
me. But these were some alarming rates, and I think you'll find the same. For example, drug use, and last year in 2020 was up 32% illegal drug use.
Wow.
And to me, that is a big deal. Now, what we're going to be doing this year is having interviews with different people in different fields that have been working with this. Some from the emergency room, some from, like we did with Start With Dan Recovery School, some people that work in inpatient. We're going to have well-rounded. Let's see, another alarming rate, 5% of 8th graders tried heroin for the first time in 2021.
Holy cow.
I know, that's scary.
That's awful.
Yeah. And then from the survey too, the National Association of Drug Abuse found that almost 60% of people said that they have drank alcohol in the last month. 60% of people, in the U.S. have done that. They also have finding more and more that 40 to 60%, it used to be 40%, now it's 40 to 60, risk from addiction comes from genetics. Now that there are also other things like trauma experience, the way the brain refires your neurotransmitters, so it could be something to do with some people use to self-medicate somewhat.
Yep.
So it's all kind of things. No
Traumatic experience, and genetics.
Genetics.
And then what else did you say?
Your mental composition, how your neurotransmitters fire. Some people have generalized anxiety disorder, or some people, have different things that their brain just is not acting the way some people do. Some people do.
So some people are predisposed to having an addictive personality.
40 to 60%.
40 to 60%.
But
wow.
People, if you're aware of it, you can change it. Like if I know that a parent has, well, I should say, if the parent on the paternal side, the parent or the grandfather have it, is actually stronger than it's on the maternal side. But these things, if you know, then you want to keep a good watch out for that, because that's where a lot of people get into the choice. This is if it's genetic kind of thing. Well, even if you're predestined to have alcoholism genetically, if you don't drink, you won't get it. Just like with diabetes or anything else.
Right.
And then most diseases, however, have a little bit of choice to do with them anyway. If you get lung cancer and you chose to smoke, or if you get lung cancer, you work in a coal mine, there's some choice involved there.
Right.
Kind of thing. Another one is that, and this is actually more now, and they found it in 2018, and I just read another latest document. It says almost over 2 million people were arrested on drug-related charges.
Wow.
I mean,
2 million people in 2019 were arrested.
Right, and that's more now. It's closer, they said in 2020, last year, it's closer to, almost 2 million people.
Wow.
And, that's a lot of people. We found out in 2019 already that trying to arrest our way out of this wasn't working. But anyway, let's see some of the others that I'm not reading all. There's so many, and I will share this where I got. Well, you can look it up in the National Institute for Drug Addiction. But almost 20 million Americans met the criteria for substance abuse disorder last year.
Yeah.
They found that smartphone addiction statistics find that almost 40% of teens never turn off their phone. Interesting. Video game addiction is way up. And that's also in our DSM, which is what we use to diagnose with.
Right.
Kind of interesting. That because it met the criteria of addiction by making life as unmanageable, it affected them medically, physically.
Right.
Another thing was interesting. 1 in 20 college students has a gambling addiction. Interesting. And the number one reason that young people say they start is boredom. And I think that's mainly because we have such an overstimulated society.
Yeah.
And let's see. The drug and alcohol abuse statistics show that young drinkers are almost 10 times more likely to use illicit drugs.
Young drinkers are?
Yes, than when we were growing up.
Probably because they feel invincible.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as the money that is spent in costs due to alcohol addiction, it's about $300 billion.
Wow.
So
you mean like that? Now that statistic is basically people. We spend as a society,
right,
when we get a call and say someone has overdosed, we send people out to get them Narcan or whatever. Is that what you're?
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about.
Anything to do with it, an overdose or anything to do with trying to get somebody treatment, because a lot of state funds pay for that. You pay taxes for that.
Yeah.
And more people need that. They don't have any money.
Gotcha.
Because by the time they're desperate enough to seek treatment, they've lost everything.
Right.
So that's kind of scary.
It's an interesting thing that you said. Once they're desperate enough to accept treatment, they've already lost everything.
Right. There's an elevator you can get off on, but until you get to that point where, oh God, something's got to change in me. Not somebody telling me that, but something's got to change in me. A perception change too, because there's a lot of people that still say, you drink too, yeah, my husband, and it's like not quite like that.
Yeah.
They also found that children with alcoholic families are almost 5 times as likely to have an alcohol problem too.
Right.
And that happens a lot. I know it happened with me. My mom was an alcoholic. I never thought in fact, I didn't start drinking until I was 38, and drank for like 7 years, but boy, did I make up for it. Because I happened to be in that. Every year, almost 50,000 babies are born with fetal alcohol syndrome.
50,000? Wow.
COVID-19 itself, they said is responsible for about a 20% increase in alcohol deaths.
No kidding.
Yeah.
20% increase. Wow.
Now, using it was a 32% increase, with the alcohol, just alcohol. And then if you looked all over, you would see that it looks like about 10% in every country, 8 to 10% of your people there are alcoholic. We don't know why it stays right around that percentage,
right?
But it's still there. About 23 million people in the U.S. have alcohol or drug problems, and that says a lot. 23
million out of a society.
They meet the criteria
of 350 million people, right? In our country. So. I would say it's probably a little bit more than that, but who am I? So,
well, yeah, and these are the people that have they've done the survey with,
right?
So all these numbers are a bit higher, actually. If you looked over that, you'd say approximately 10% of the world have a drug problem. Now that's kind of scary too. Let's see. In 2017, it was 4% of teenagers suffered. Now it's more like 8%, I think.
Sure.
8% of you teenagers have some kind of addiction problem. And that's scary. In fact, it was like right around 8 million people aged 18 to 25 with drug issues. And that is just scary. Since the start of the pandemic, drug use has increased by 50%.
Drug use has increased by 50%.
Right.
Holy moly.
And in 2020, we lost 93,000 people just to as a result of some kind of either overdose or wrecked and had a wreck, they were drunk. It had something to do with the substance being in their body during the autopsy. Now, that's only the people that did the autopsy. So
right.
There's a lot of people that deal with that. Another thing is prescription drug use. A lot of people say, well, that's not illicit. You don't tap in that. Well, almost 20,000 people died from prescription overdose last year. Another statistic was kind of crazy, that 18 million people have abused prescription drugs at least once in their life.
18 billion people have abused, 18 million people have abused prescription drugs at least one time in their life.
If this bottle says take one and then they take two, or they lost it and got it one from grandma, or whoever.
I would say, if you have a mentality of why take one when you can take two, or why drink just one when you can have two or three or four, or why just do one line when you can do 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, then maybe perhaps you fall into that category,
Well, yeah, but the newer generations seem to be all about excess anyway. And the U.S. is all about excess. So, I think it's more of a cultural thing than anything. It seems like it'd be an intelligence thing.
Sure.
Thing. There's also some scary things with like the marijuana. About 40% of the people, because this was from 16 tonight, cross-referenced it. They said now it's about 40% of marijuana users are at risk for developing a marijuana use disorder. And I know there's a lot of people that say, well, that's not addictive, but no, we're finding out in Colorado, their treatment centers are full.
I bet.
And it's another thing with the Delta 88 coming out in your as part of medical marijuana. Well, you can buy it across the counter too.
Sure.
We've had a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids have been overdosing, and adults too have been affected by it. Let's see. Let me see. I'm trying not to go through all this, so we could do this quickly.
Why don't we wrap up and tell people that, these are just some of the statistics, and if you see anything that jumps out at you, then go ahead and just let it ring. But the thing is that really, I think that this year has shown us, number one, for many people, they just feel more, it's reinforced that they're alone. I think, if anything, because of coronavirus, and do I go out? Do I put myself at risk to get coronavirus, or do I, go and find friends, or go out and seek friends, or do I go out and seek camaraderie with other people who, are also in the same boat that I am?
And isolation is the biggest factor.
Right.
We had to isolate. We almost had like a testing ground
to
see why fellowships and things like that work, because you were forced to isolate. So then that's why we had more people relapse. We actually had more people dying because they were alone using, where sometimes they'd be in public or somebody find them with some hotel room somewhere.
Right.
And but now neuroscientists find that social component is very strong. So the pandemic was a big factor in that.
Right.
And it's nothing compared to Zoom and all that. Nothing compares to all that, But at least shows like this, information can let you know, because if you can be aware of it, you can change it. Addiction is that consistent and chronic use, even though you have a negative consequences, you can't stop.
Right.
And and that can be changed.
So
perception.
What you're saying is that if you're with our video still to this point, well, kudos to you, and thank you so much for watching. But if you've identified with anything in this video, you can reach out to us, to our IOP center here, or you can just get something. And,
Yeah, you can email too.
email.
It's rolling at the bottom. But,
So
we're going to be talking on each one of these topics. We're going to have somebody that's going to talk on how, like when the teenage drug use up 20% or whatever. Then Dan talking about how the recovery school, and then he's going to finish his interview next Wednesday.
oh,
So I'll
excellent.
be doing that, and then we're going to be talking to someone in each one of these categories that's a professional.
Right.
So I think it's going to help immensely because these statistics are alarming.
Yeah.
So, but we don't want to end on a bad note. Just kind of going over 21 so that we can make sure that even though a lot of the news is not handling that anymore, that it's still alive and well. Addiction is there.
Yes.
But there is a solution. There is help, and there is information, and there's resources, and that's what the whole jive of this is put together for. So I'm looking forward to some of the interviews and getting some deep talk into some of the professionals that handle each of these areas.
Sounds great. Well, so, and just to before the new year is upon us, and I realized halfway through that this is Recovery Talks episode 4, volume 1, January 2022. This is really about New Year's. So there we go. All
this
right.
is live. Sorry.
So, just keep it in mind. You have our contact information, and just let us know if there's something that we can do to further assist you. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Have a safe New Year's, and
we hope to see you like next Wednesday, because we'll be starting that with our professional format.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Happy New Year.
Mm-hmm.
Be safe.